There is no doubt about it that back in 2022, when the Oscar slap situation took place of what Will Smith did against Chris Rock on live television in front of everybody, that he lost millions upon millions of fans in just one single night. And ever since then, he has been trying to make a comeback with his acting career, but not just his acting career, his music career, which was dormant for many, many years, and now he's trying to do that in 2025. You guys may recall that aside from the recent concert that took place where there was a lot of criticism about whether or not his crowd was generated, back a couple of months ago, right around February or March of this year, he dropped an album called the Based on a True Story album by Slang Records, and there were moments in there, lyrics in there, that took shots at Chris Rock. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, Will Smith is seemingly at it again of attacking and humiliating Chris Rock, and how that's all in the process right now as we speak, and how it does indeed involve Jada Pinkett Smith, Slang Records, and a second part to, of course, Based on a True Story. We'll talk more about this. Now, what's interesting about all of this is that we know that Chris Rock, for the most part, has been really trying to stay away from the whole Will Smith drama, but now Will Smith is doubling down on all of this nonsense, and the fact that he is beginning to become a political, talking point, when it comes to displaying his overall criticism for, the Trump administration and Trump supporters, MAGA, all of that, and how he drags it into his very own career. Something that nobody wants to actually listen to or hear about at all. One thing if you're an actor, an actress, producer, writer, director, performer, whatever it may be, the last thing you want to do is drag politics at the forefront of your career, because then you're going to alienate more than half of your audience right off the bat. But this is where it really begins to go out of control. Now, with Will Smith already losing his temper after his own fans walked away after he made multiple political comments and attacked his own fans just recently, his crowd appeared to be generated, didn't help his case either, nor did the Oscar slap situation back in 2022. Now, one significant development going on now involves more to do with Will Smith and how he is already working on yet another album for 2026 that is already set to take shots again at Chris Rock, and it will double down on that and will serve as a second part of some kind to his Based on a True Story album by Slang Records. A crucial update to this entire story now involves how Jada Pinkett Smith is the one who encouraged Will Smith to openly humiliate and embarrass Chris Rock in his new album that will serve as a sequel to the album that dropped in March of this year. Slang Records already met up with Will and Jada, and how Chris Rock will be focused on even more so than the previous album that dropped a couple of lines, of course, that called out Chris Rock. Now, it's shocking here, however, that family members close to Will Smith reportedly and desperately urged him to not go through with attacking Chris Rock again in this new 2026 album that is set to be announced. Now, Will already informed Slang Records that he intends to release over 10 songs this time for this album specifically, and wants to address the Chris Rock slap situation and how it destroyed his acting career and how he holds Chris Rock responsible through the use of lyrics. Jada Pinkett Smith reportedly encouraged Will to go through with this as a coping mechanism to handle the downfall of his career and his attempt to make a comeback, not just in acting but also in music, and how Chris Rock will be a main focus on his 2026 album that he is actively putting together. Now, the album is also reportedly going to address social media criticism about his crowd was computer generated and the struggles of making a comeback in acting and music, and how Chris Rock's comedy destroyed his time in Hollywood. Now, both Slang Records and Will Smith, along with Jada Pinkett Smith, are all in active discussions right now on how this will be executed, essentially, since his most recent album was, of course, not well received with some of the songs. Now, Will also congratulated Jada Pinkett Smith, get this, in the most recent creative meeting with Slang Records for encouraging him to go through with openly calling out Chris Rock for how he turned Will Smith's life into a living nightmare. Something the majority of the public will surely find as immature and childish behavior coming from Will Smith himself. Now, guys, before we move on, let me just say one thing about this. Now, the fact that we know that a lot of people are you know, already against Will Smith making a comeback with his music career, and also how he's beginning to snap back with politics and how that's not working out well for him in the long run. We also know that the fact that he is creating a second part to Based on a True Story album, and how it's going to take even more shots at Chris Rock, and how it's going to double down on that, and how it's all being, of course, orchestrated essentially by Jada Pinkett Smith. I don't know how worse things can get from this point forward. I really don't. Because this is really hitting rock bottom. Heck, it's hitting below rock bottom. It is hitting bedrock at this point. That's how bad it is. But we know one thing about Will, alright, is that he's beginning to realize that there are so many people out there that are rejecting his movies, that are outright rejecting his music, and now he's stooping this low to creating a second part of an album that really wasn't all that well received in different areas. And look, we know that him talking about the whole Chris Rock slap situation low-key, that also was a major, you know, critical part in the album, and how he's going to actually make it at the forefront for the second part. It just goes to show you that he really can't let go of things when it comes to the whole Chris Rock drama. Now, moving onwards, alright? Now, Slang Records is reportedly ecstatic to call out Chris Rock, as they believe any kind of press, whether it's negative or positive, will bring in attention to Will's planned 2026 album that he plans to drop by the summer or fall of next year. Even Jada Pinkett is reportedly in talks, get this, to make a musical entry by providing a short number of lyrics, calling out Chris Rock alongside Will Smith in one of the songs. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it's one thing for Will to do this, it's another thing for Jada Pinkett to actually become a voice in this album, in one of the songs. Now, I'm sure it's going to be very short-lived, I'm sure it's going to be like a 30-second thing or something like that, but she is going to make some kind of an involvement in this album, in one of the actual songs, and they do plan to make this a very lengthy album in comparison to the previous one. And I think it's not going to work out well for them. I think in the long run, it's only going to make things worse, especially after what happened behind the scenes between himself and Snoop Dogg. We talked about that just yesterday, about all the drama that took place for Jimmy Kimmel Live. But what's interesting here is that both Will and Jada, along with Slang Records, are partnering up to get back at Chris Rock in 2026, and it will most likely not work well with the public. Again, Will doesn't really seem to fully believe in the fact that what he did was a so-called mistake, right? That's just him playing the victim. Whenever he talks back to his critics or the fans that walked away and said, yeah, what I did back in 2022 was a mistake, obviously he doesn't actually mean that, because now he's actually all set and ready to go to call out Chris Rock, to blame him for why his career is shattered, and how that's going to be used in the form of an album. And how Jada Pinkett is all behind this, right? She's like the puppeteer pulling the strings on Will Smith as a puppet, and really pretty much just orchestrating the entire thing. Now, one thing is for certain is that this is going to create more backlash in 2026. It's still a ways off, but you're going to see another wave of backlash for Will Smith, that's for certain. Overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, anything ranging from Jada to Chris Rock to Will Smith, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.